In this video, you'll discover how cavemen built homes so warm they could survive the coldest winters, and some of their techniques are smarter than we give them credit for. From clever fire placement to walls made from nature's best materials, every detail had a purpose. But before we dive in, I have to ask, where are you watching this from and what time is it where you are? I'd genuinely love to know. Drop it in the comments because it's always fascinating to see people from all over the world joining us to explore the past. Now imagine this. No heaters, no blankets, no electricity. Just freezing nights, icy winds, and snow covering everything. And yet some cavemen stayed perfectly warm, safe and cozy inside their homes. How did they do it? That's exactly what we're about to uncover. From ingenious designs to smart use of natural materials, these early humans mastered the cold in ways that will amaze you. So get ready. Wherever you are, whatever time it is, settle in because we're stepping back thousands of years to discover the warmest winter homes ever built by cavemen. Before cavemen ever built a home, life was raw, brutal, and unpredictable. Nights were freezing. Snow blanketed the land and icy winds cut through whatever thin layer of protection they could find. Predators lurked everywhere, from wolves and saber-toothed cats to other humans competing for food. Every day was a battle for survival, and one mistake could mean the end. Imagine waking up before dawn, your breath freezing in the air and knowing that today you must hunt or gather food to survive. The cold was relentless and there was no modern warmth, no heaters, no thick clothes, no cozy blankets. Every animal skin you wrapped around yourself was precious, and every fire you managed to light could be the difference between life and death. Cavemen relied heavily on natural shelters, caves, rock overhangs, or dense forests. But even these came with risks. Caves could harbor dangerous animals and forests could be treacherous in a blizzard. The cold seeped through even the thickest rocks and the wind found every crack and crevice. Surviving without warmth was a constant challenge, but humans are inventive. Even in these harsh conditions, early humans observed nature closely. They noticed that certain materials trapped heat better than others. Animal hides kept them warmer than leaves. Stones absorbed sunlight and radiated heat even after the sun went down. By trial and error, they started experimenting with small shelters, stacking rocks, layering branches, and creating fire pits to survive the nights. Daily life before proper homes required careful planning. Food had to be hunted or foraged and often stored in ways that kept it from freezing or being eaten by predators. Water had to be found, melted from ice, or collected from streams. Social organization became crucial. Working together increased chances of survival. Those who figured out even small improvements in warmth or safety thrived, while others didn't. Even simple acts became survival strategies. Sleeping positions mattered. Clustering together preserved body heat, and fire placement became an art form. They discovered that low entrances kept heat inside, and rocks around fires reflected warmth back to where people slept. These small innovations were the seeds of the incredible winter homes that would come later. And yet, despite the danger and the cold, humans adapted. Each challenge inspired creativity. Every frozen night forced them to think, how can we stay alive? How can we keep warm? How can we protect our families? This constant drive for survival is what led to the first truly warm, human-built shelters. By understanding the harsh conditions of early life, we can appreciate the genius of their later designs. The homes cavemen eventually built weren't just structures. They were masterpieces of survival engineering, combining materials, design, and fire in ways that seem almost impossible for a time without modern knowledge. Cavemen didn't have bricks, cement, or even proper tools. But what they lacked in technology, they made up for with resourcefulness. Every material they used came straight from their environment, carefully selected for warmth, durability, and availability. From animal hides to stone, mud to wood, Each choice played a vital role in creating a home that could withstand freezing winters. Animal hides were perhaps the most obvious choice. Thick, layered furs kept body heat in and the cold out. They were not only used as clothing but also as wall coverings, bedding, and insulation. Some early humans even discovered that layering different types of hides increased warmth. Deer hides were soft and flexible, perfect for sleeping areas, while thicker mammoth or bear hides were placed on walls or entrances to block the wind. Wood was another essential material. Branches, sticks, and logs provided structure for shelters, allowing walls to stand upright and roofs to form. But it wasn't just any wood. They learned which types were stronger, more weather-resistant, and better at trapping warmth. Certain woods could also burn longer and hotter when used for fires, making them dual-purpose materials. Stone was a game-changer. Rocks could retain heat from the sun during the day and slowly release it at night, keeping homes warmer than they otherwise would be. Stones were often stacked to form walls, fireplaces, or even windbreaks around the home. Even without modern mortar, cavemen learned how to balance and layer stone so that structures remained stable, strong, and insulated. Mud and clay were their natural insulation. Mixed with grass or straw, these materials could fill gaps in walls, creating barriers against the biting cold. Some shelters were reinforced with mud-packed walls or floors, which helped trap warmth inside and keep moisture out. The combination of mud, wood, and stones turned simple shelters into surprisingly effective homes. And then there were smaller, often overlooked materials: leaves, grasses, moss, and animal hair. These were stuffed into cracks, layered on floors, or placed on walls for extra insulation. Every tiny adjustment made a difference in comfort and survival. Cavemen experimented continuously, discovering which combinations worked best under different conditions, from snowy plains to icy river valleys. What's fascinating is that they weren't just using materials randomly. Early humans observed nature carefully: how nests, dens, or hollowed trees kept animals warm, and applied similar principles to their own homes. They understood airflow, insulation, and heat retention long before anyone had written a manual or studied physics. By using what was around them and combining materials thoughtfully, cavemen created shelters that were not only functional, but ingenious. They learned to turn nature itself into a partner in survival, making their homes safe, cozy, and remarkably resilient. Next, we'll uncover how these materials were arranged and designed to trap heat, block wind, and make homes truly warm, showing just how clever these early architects really were. Materials alone weren't enough to survive the brutal winters. What truly made cavemen masters of survival was how they arranged those materials. Their shelters were more than piles of stone and hide. They were carefully thought-out designs built with one goal: to trap every bit of heat and keep the cold outside where it belonged. One of their most clever tricks was the shape of their shelters. Many were circular or dome-like, which wasn't just about stability. This design allowed heat to spread evenly inside, while also reducing the amount of cold air that could seep in. Sharp corners create drafts, but curves keep warmth circulating. Without even knowing the science, cavemen understood this principle from observation and practice. Entrances were another smart feature. Instead of leaving a wide opening, they often created small, low doorways that forced people to crouch down as they entered. Why? Because warm air rises and cold air sinks. By keeping entrances low and narrow, less heat escaped and the cold was kept from rushing in. Sometimes they even built entry tunnels, adding another barrier between the freezing outside and the cozy inside. Inside, fire wasn't placed randomly. Cavemen positioned fire pits carefully, often in the center of the shelter. A central fire spread warmth equally in all directions, while stones around it absorbed and released heat long after the flames had died down. Smoke would rise and escape through small gaps or openings above, while the warmth remained trapped below. Over time, they refined this balance, Too much smoke meant suffocation, too much ventilation meant losing heat. Getting it right was a matter of survival. Walls and floors were also designed with warmth in mind. Stones or logs were layered with mud, clay, or moss to seal cracks and stop the wind from sneaking in. On the ground, grasses, leaves, and animal hides formed makeshift carpets that kept cold from seeping up into their bodies as they slept. These details, though simple, made the difference between shivering through the night and actually resting in comfort. Some shelters even used double layers, like walls within walls, with air pockets in between. This trapped heat in much the same way as modern insulation works in our homes today. It's easy to underestimate these structures, but they were in many ways the first blueprints for energy-efficient living. The brilliance of these designs is that they didn't come from books, science, or formal learning. They came from necessity, observation, and countless generations of trial and error. Cavemen watched how animals dug burrows, built nests, or sheltered in caves, and then applied those lessons to their own survival. Slowly, they perfected designs that worked in harmony with nature instead of fighting against it. These were not just shelters against the cold. They were living proof of human creativity, resourcefulness, and the drive to adapt. With nothing but stone, wood, hides, and fire, cavemen turned some of the harshest environments on Earth into places they could truly call home. If there was one element that turned a cold shelter into a true winter home, it was fire. Fire wasn't just light and warmth, it was life itself. For cavemen, the crackling flames in the middle of their dwelling weren't decoration. They were survival, comfort, and even a sense of safety. Fire transformed the atmosphere of their homes. Imagine a winter night, the world outside buried under snow, the wind howling through the trees. Inside, though, flames glowed, shadows danced on stone walls, and the air shimmered with heat. That warmth gave the body a chance to rest, but it also gave the mind something more, a sense of security in a dangerous world. Keeping a fire alive wasn't simple. Cavemen couldn't strike a match whenever they wanted. Fire was hard-earned, often from striking stones together or carrying embers from one place to another. Once it was lit, it became a treasure. Families guarded it carefully, feeding it with wood, dried grasses, or animal fat. In some groups, someone's duty through the night was to make sure the flames never went out. The placement of the fire was no accident. A central fire pit spread heat evenly, and the glowing stones around it stored warmth long after the flames dimmed. Cavemen learned that larger rocks could be heated by the fire during the day, then moved closer to sleeping areas at night to act as natural radiators. It was an early form of thermal engineering born from necessity, but fire did more than warm the air. It made food safer and more nourishing. Roasting meat over flames broke down toughness and killed harmful bacteria. Warm meals gave strength against the bitter cold, making survival more than just possible. It became a little more bearable. Smoke management was another art form. Too much smoke meant suffocation. Too little fire meant freezing. Cavemen built small openings or used cracks in the roof and walls to let smoke drift out, while keeping precious heat inside. This delicate balance showed a level of understanding far deeper than we often assume. Fire also offered protection. The glowing flames kept predators at bay, whether wolves lurking in the dark or larger beasts prowling nearby. To the cavemen, fire wasn't just warmth. It was a guardian that kept the night's dangers at a distance. And perhaps most importantly, fire brought people together. Around the flames, families gathered, stories were told, and knowledge was passed down. In those moments, warmth wasn't just physical, it was emotional. Fire turned a cold shelter into a home, a space where survival transformed into connection and community. For the caveman, fire was not a tool. It was the very heart of existence, the heartbeat of every winter night, and the single greatest ally in the endless battle against the cold. Cavemen didn't only rely on the shelters they built. In many ways, Their most reliable defense against the cold was what they carried on their backs. Clothing became their portable shelter, a second skin designed by nature and refined by human hands. Animal hides and furs were the earliest form of winter wear. When stretched and softened, they turned into thick coats and cloaks that trapped body heat. Unlike stone walls or fires, these garments traveled with them, allowing warmth to stay close no matter where they wandered. A fur-lined cloak or hide-wrapped boots could mean the difference between life and death during a snowstorm. Cavemen weren't simply draping themselves in skins. They used tools made from bone and stone to scrape hides, soften them, and stitch pieces together with sinew threads. The result was more than rugged protection. It was carefully crafted gear. The better the fit, the better it insulated, hugging the body and keeping precious heat from escaping. Layering was another survival tactic. Just like modern hikers wear multiple layers, cavemen wore inner hides to trap body warmth and outer furs to block wind and snow. The thickest pelts, often from animals like bison or bears, became outer shields against the worst weather. Meanwhile, smaller hides were wrapped around feet and hands, protecting extremities most vulnerable to frost. But clothing wasn't just practical, it carried meaning. The type of fur someone wore revealed the kind of hunter they were, or the dangers they had faced. A wolf pelt might show bravery, while the fur of a massive deer showed skill and endurance. In this way, clothing became both survival gear and a silent story of identity. Animal fat sometimes played a role too. Cavemen rubbed fat into hides and onto their skin to make a waterproof barrier. This simple method helped block wind and snow, keeping them warmer in freezing storms. It wasn't glamorous, but it was effective, proof of how deeply they understood the elements they fought against. What's fascinating is how this practice echoes into the present. Our winter jackets, boots, and layered clothing are still built on the same principles. The cavemen had no modern technology, but through trial and error, they created a system of portable warmth that we've only refined, not reinvented. Clothing turned every journey into something survivable. It gave freedom to hunt, to travel, to explore beyond the shelter's walls. Wrapped in layers of fur and hide, a caveman didn't just endure the cold, he carried his home with him wherever he went. A single fire could warm a room, but the true secret to surviving winter was community. For the cavemen, warmth wasn't just about flames or furs, it was about people. Together they shared heat, shared work, and shared life. Sleeping arrangements were a survival strategy on their own. Families huddled close, pressing bodies together to conserve energy. The warmth of many people lying side by side turned cold caves into living furnaces. It was a simple truth. Together they were stronger against the cold than apart. Tasks were divided too. Some gathered wood, others prepared hides, while hunters provided meat and fat to fuel both body and fire. In the depth of winter, one person's effort supported the whole group. No single member could endure the season alone. Survival was a collective achievement. Around the fire, community also provided something deeper, comfort and belonging. Imagine the glow of flames dancing across stone walls while voices rose in storytelling, laughter, or the quiet rhythm of tools scraping hides. These moments turned cold nights into shared experiences, where knowledge passed from elders to children and bonds between people grew unshakable. Even danger was faced together. When predators prowled near or storms threatened to collapse a shelter, the group acted as one, strength multiplied by unity. In this way, survival was never just about skill. It was about trust. Cavemen knew that when they lay down at night, they weren't only protected by walls and fire, but by the watchful eyes of their community. In a way, shared warmth was more than physical. It was emotional resilience. The presence of others reminded each person they weren't fighting the cold alone. This sense of togetherness carried them through winters that might otherwise have broken the human spirit. Community was their greatest insulation. not made of stone, wood, or fur, but of connection. It was the invisible shield that wrapped around them all, turning survival into something human, and transforming the harshest winters into stories worth remembering. When we think of cavemen, it's easy to imagine them as primitive, struggling figures huddled in caves. But the truth is, their survival strategies reveal a timeless wisdom, lessons that still echo in the way we live today. Take their shelters, for example. The curved designs, the use of natural insulation, and the placement of fire all resemble techniques we use in modern architecture. Our homes may be built of brick, concrete, and steel, but the principle is the same. Keep heat in, keep cold out. In fact, many eco-friendly homes today rely on the same idea of working with nature instead of against it. Their clothing tells a similar story. Layering, insulating, and waterproofing, these are survival methods we still use every winter. From heavy coats to thermal socks, the science of warmth hasn't changed. The difference is that we now have technology to refine what our ancestors discovered through observation and need. Even their reliance on community carries through. In the modern world, winters may not always be about physical survival, but isolation still brings hardship. People thrive in groups, families, and friendships just as they did thousands of years ago. Shared warmth, whether through a campfire or conversation, remains a core part of being human. What stands out most is the creativity behind their choices. Cavemen didn't have laboratories, textbooks, or machines. What they had was observation, trial and error, and the relentless drive to adapt. That ingenuity is the same force that built cities, powered technology, and continues to push us forward today. In the glow of their fires and the walls of their shelters, we see more than survival. We see the foundations of civilization. They remind us that progress doesn't begin with comfort. It begins with challenge. And every challenge, no matter how harsh, can spark solutions that shape the future. So the next time you step into a warm home on a freezing night, wrapped in layers of clothing and surrounded by loved ones, remember this: those comforts trace back to the cavemen, to their brilliance, their resilience, and their refusal to surrender to the cold. Their winter homes weren't just shelters. They were the starting point of human innovation itself. And that's the story of how cavemen built the warmest homes to survive the coldest winters. Their walls, their fires, their clothing, and their communities weren't just survival tricks. They were the foundations of the world we live in today. If you enjoyed this journey into the past, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next story. We've only just scratched the surface of history's hidden wisdom, and there are countless more secrets waiting to be uncovered. Until then, stay curious, stay warm, and I'll see you in the next video.